Hello and welcome to the Just Got Paid podcast, where we're turning your paycheck into passions, purpose, and profits. I'm excited about today's episode because this week's episode is going to be entitled New Year, New Money Moves, and we're really going to show you how to accomplish your financial goals for 2025. We have a very special guest on with us today. And so before I bring him on, I really just want to kind of give him just due and read his bio so that way you have an understanding of who's here today to give you some advice and some guidance along this year. So Torrance Chaplin is our guest. He's an accomplished financial services senior executive. He has over 25 years of leadership experience, and his leadership journey really got started in the U.S. Naval Academy. He is a Marine, and so he did earn his Bachelor of Science in Political Science there, and he was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer. In the Marines, he did manage over 2,500 folks. He was deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom as a comptroller for the Marine Landing Force, and he provided a lot of financial support for our Marines abroad. After his military service, Torrance did serve as the operations manager for Frito-Lay North America. He managed a budget of $113 million, and he was able to deliver on some substantial cost savings for the company to boost profitability. Right now, he is with Primerica. He serves as a regional vice president. He has guided a leadership team of 4 executives, and he has over 250 licensed financial services representatives. So he's really helping folks in their money, finances, things of that nature. And he has some numbers after his name. So he does have a Series 6, Series 7, 63, 65, 24, 26. I mean, he's got it all. So he's life and health insurance licensed as well, and a mortgage loan originator. So we're definitely bringing on somebody who's got a lot of professional experience. He's also a distinguished athlete, so maybe we'll have some time to dive into this a little bit, but he actually competed in the 2000 U.S. Olympic trials, and he holds a record with the Naval Academy for the 200 meter and 400 meter in track and field. So outside of work, he enjoys spending his time with his beautiful wife and their gorgeous 2 kids, and just really balances life and work and gives back to the community. So he's really big on mentorship, providing advice and expertise, and he's here to help you in reaching your financial goals for 2025. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Torrance Chaplin. Welcome, sir. How you doing?
Doing well, Eric. Pleasure to see you again this afternoon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I got a little hand clap for you, so I wanted to make sure we brought you on the right way. But, ultimately, I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost for coming on and spending this time with us. I know that you're a busy man, and, there's a lot of information out there, correct and incorrect. And so as people are looking forward to the new year, they're trying to get their finances together, and they really want to know the right direction to go. So we're going to dive into some of this information, and by all means, we're here to hear from you, not from me. You're the expert. So before we dive into the subject and some of the content, the meat and potatoes, I just kind of want to chat with you a little bit about your experience. I mean, you got into financial services. Did you always have a passion for this field, or how did this come about?
For me, financial services kind of found me. I was fortunate going to the Naval Academy right around my junior year. We had a company officer actually bring in a financial advisor to speak with us, and that kind of sparked some interest at that point in time in terms of, hey, maybe this is something I want to do after graduation in terms of start investing and learning a little bit more about it. Saw quite a few of my classmates start doing that, and then knowing that we're going to have a career in the military as well, at least to start off with, I immediately did that right after graduation, and continue to do that. So I started investing at age 23, and that continued on, even moving from duty station to duty station. But in terms of working in financial services, that really struck when you talked about my track background. I was actually training at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista at the time, and I had a meeting with my financial advisor out here in San Diego that afternoon, and a couple of my teammates wanted to come along with me, so we went, and they had a bunch of questions, but leaving that meeting, the financial advisor actually pulled me aside and asked me, hey, I know you're getting out the military soon. Have you ever thought about looking into financial services as a career change? And it kind of planted the seed at that point for me. And I started thinking more and more on it and looked at it as, okay, this could be a great way for me to learn this stuff for myself, to be able to help out my parents as well. Because growing up, we grew up in a very low middle American family. My parents struggled financially as well. So I looked at it as a way for me to be able to help them out, but also help a lot of other families out just like them, because I knew that we weren't the only ones struggling out there. So after getting out the military, I was really just trying to find the right fit for me at the time. I knew it was something I really wanted to do, just couldn't find the right fit. So did what I did with Frito-Lay until I could find the right fit, which was Primerica at the time. And again, been here now, just went over 19 years here in financial services, helping families. So
that's great. No, that's great. I'm definitely very familiar with Primerica and the services, and often people don't give enough credit to those who are sitting down at the kitchen table, and going over finances and life insurance and talking about the things that we're uncomfortable talking about. So and thank you for your service in the military first and foremost.
Thank you.
What brought you to the military? Like, what was it? Did you see, obviously you mentioned another officer, but was it, a passion of yours? And how many years did you end up serving?
I think for most people that come into the military, it's either because of duty, or when you're young and you grew up with not that much, is really another way to pay for college. So for me, it was a ladder. I actually started running track my senior year in high school. Turned out to be pretty good. My high school coach, his son had just graduated from the Naval Academy, so he actually sent my resume, for lack of a better word, to the Naval Academy about my track accolades and what have you. Me personally, I wanted to really go to either the University of Tennessee or go to Florida or what have you, but or South Carolina even. But that was a way for me to get out of having to go into the Army just to get the GI Bill or what have you. So end up going to the Naval Academy. Once you go to the Naval Academy, after your first 2 years, if you go the first day of class in your junior year, then you're obligated to serve the last 2 years there, and then a 5-year active duty commitment. So for me, it was up and down those first 2 years just because of how committed to track I was, and wasn't a right fit quite at first until coach made some adjustments, and then things took off from there. But so committed, chose the Marine Corps option, and again, the longer you're in, the more you realize it's more the thing that initially brought you in fades away, and then you have a new purpose. And that was really to now shifting, okay, how can I set myself up, but also take care of the folks that, especially being a Marine, is duty calling at that point in time to serve your country, defend democracy and freedom, and continue to grow.
No, that's awesome. Well, no, I definitely appreciate you and your service, and obviously you've had quite a great, career in the military, but then also coming into the business world, you've done a lot there. And so I really want to kind of dive into,
you've done a lot there. So I really want to kind of
inspired you to really,
what's inspired you to really
achieve,
make sure that you're helping people achieve their financial goals, other people.
I think the passion really to see people get ahead financially. Again, I think we all were kind of brought here. Well, I go back to the way I grew up in terms of the Christian background, and they say God wants us all to live a life of abundance, really. So, and He didn't give us dreams to taunt us. So really going in and realizing, just from my own circumstances and how I grew up, that we didn't really have much, and people aren't struggling mainly because they want to. It's just because they lack knowledge, they lack the financial well-being. They lack companies coming in to try to teach them how to get ahead financially, and all of the nuts and bolts about money. Money, to me, I look at it as a game. If you know the rules of the game, you can work your hardest to try to win the game. If you don't know the rules, you're already set behind the 8 ball at that point, and that's what's making it so hard for most people to get ahead. I talk to folks all the time. A simple question I usually ask is, okay, do you believe that you could be a millionaire? And then based on how someone answers that question, okay, do you know, if they say, yes, I believe I can be a millionaire, the question is, do you know how to become a millionaire? If they say no, then why do you feel like you never could be a millionaire? Okay, and it's really because we were never taught the simple basics steps of financial services or finances. Rule 72, the power of compound interest, how to get our money working for us so we don't have to work so hard for it, and then starting early instead of rather waiting late. Like most people on average wait until they're about 43 years old to really take advantage of investing, what have you.
No, and that definitely makes sense. I think the biggest thing too is when you get to a point to where the, like you said, starting late, not having the information. It sounds like a lot of your passion is coming from you not having the education ahead of time when you were young, and your parents not having that education. And so it seems like now that you are learning these things, you're looking to pass them on. So why do you feel like, oftentimes we hear like, oh, at the beginning of the year, I'm gonna get my finances together. What is it about the beginning of the year, and how do people like start hitting the road running, if you would?
I think the new year poses a fresh start for most people. Psychologically, it's a reset button where they can kind of clean the slate and say, okay, I'm gonna get motivated. Why do you see most people recommit to going to the gym at the beginning of each year? That's a big psychological effect of it. Hey, I'm gonna do something new now going into the new year. I think it also gives a period of time where we can sit back and reflect on what just happened coming out of the previous year, and what wins did we have, things that we can continue to momentum to build upon, or hey, lessons learned from maybe the mistakes or the down periods of the year, and making sure that the decisions that we're making moving forward are being done intentionally instead of just haphazardly. Okay, but I think it's also a time where we know that, hey, we have a full runway in front of us as well, where we have 12 months plus to get whatever we need to get done, or whatever we're recommitting to done. So I think that's a big thing. Most people are reflective. It's a fresh start, but also most people are filled with hope and optimism because they have such a long runway to say, hey, I can implement new things and change the course of maybe my life or the way things have been going so far.
Nah, yeah, I definitely think that that's a great point because, reflecting on the past year, sometimes you look at some of the mistakes that you've made, or things that you wish that you could have did differently. And so, that makes a lot of sense to people, okay, now it's time to start over. Let me get things right. And so, a lot of our audience, the folks who want to listen in on this podcast and want to really, learn the information, they're working full time. They're getting, they make good money, but they're trying to figure out like, okay, here, that's an end goal. Like, okay, yes, I want to become financially independent and build generational wealth, but where do I start? So what are some small baby steps, things that they can do just to get started with the income that they're earning at work?
And doing a comprehensive budget. One of the biggest things I know when I'm working with my clients, most people don't realize that there's black holes in their budget. Okay, so when I go to that budget worksheet with them, big black holes, typically food, whether it's groceries or eating out. Most people overspend tremendously in those areas or underestimate how much they're actually spending. In other words, gifts. Most people really don't understand or comprehend how much they're actually spending on gifts. And then just the randomness. Most people really spend, sometimes most people just spend because they're bored. So they go out there, go to the mall, so they start shopping online or what have you. So I think the first thing is really establishing a concrete budget. And the big thing there is using the budget worksheet as their primary document, not their bank account. One of the things I always tell folks, especially if you're using your debit card to spend, the good thing in there is the bank tracks everything for you. The bad thing is most people typically look at their bank account to determine whether they have money to spend or not, rather than following a budget worksheet. the bank account will lie to you, because let's say, for instance, on the budget worksheet, if we've averaged everything out for the year in terms of what you're going to spend per month on things, hey, you may not be buying gifts this month, or you may not have to pay for a car repair this month, but those things are budgeted. So when the things pop up in the future, you have money set aside in your account to be able to cover those things. But if you're just focused on your budget, on your bank account, you may look, hey, I got an extra $200 sitting in the bank account. Okay, I'm going to go spend that. And it automatically sets that person behind the eight ball, because now when those things do pop up, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul to try to cover those things. And that kind of leads me into another point that's simple, that someone it should be set up right away as well, is set up an emergency fund, okay, to take care of those immediate needs or things that pop up out of the blue that weren't really planned for. Typically, you want to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of income built up in that account. Realistically, I tell folks, try to hit $5,000 first and then build towards the 3 to 6 months worth of income, because for the most part, $5,000 can usually cover anything that does pop up, and it'll help you buy time to be able to hit those that 3 to 6 months worth of income built up in that account. The other thing would be, if you're going to start investing or start saving, definitely try to set it up on automatic payments or deductions going into those accounts before you even start spending. There's a saying out there, pay yourself first. So the easy way to do that is to automate it, so you never really miss it. It's gone, it's put away in the account. The investments are a little bit better than just a general savings account, because most people still see it, and it's very easy to get access to the savings account, versus an investment account. It's typically going to take 3 days for you to get ACH money transferred back to you. So it makes a person really think, do I really need this money, or am I just trying to tap into it because it's accessible at this point in time? So those are the big things. And I think the final point I would make is just get a better understanding of debt. Most people, especially as we go off to college or what have you, we're bombarded by credit card companies left and right to sign up for this credit card, that credit card, and really never taught how to use debt responsibly. Okay, there's good debt and bad debt, believe it or not. So good debt would fall into the categories of maybe a mortgage, something that you're using, you're leveraging or acquiring assets, leveraging money from the bank to acquire an asset that's going to actually appreciate, versus you're now getting money from the bank in the form of a credit card that's not so good. It's only going to go into a 2-cycle billing cycle and constantly drawing in people. If you want to learn a little bit more about credit cards, I would tell the viewers, Google search a YouTube video by Frontline or PBS from back in the day, about 2009 time period. It was called The Card Game. That'll give you a rude awakening on how the credit card companies and the banks systematically put in place these cards for subprime lending, really just waiting for the day that somebody's going to drown, knowing that they're going to profit off of that, versus kind of giving you a wake-up call to kind of stay away from that sort of thing.
No, and that definitely makes sense, because like you said, going off to college, they're like, oh, T-shirt, you apply for this credit card, and so they don't teach you, there's no financial literacy to teach you about credit cards, but yet they're hounding our college students with all these different credit card opportunities or credit opportunities. So getting into credit card debt is very easy and very difficult to get out of for a lot of folks. So we definitely keep our eye on that for our young folks. When people are thinking about setting their goals for this year, obviously we want to make sure that we're doing things differently. Like you mentioned, some small goals, like save $5,000. Sometimes we work with clients who are putting money under the mattress. They don't have a banking relationship, or they're just putting it into the savings account and not realizing that, inflation is working against them. And so they're really not moving the needle, if you would, for saving. So if there were small financial goals for this year that somebody could set, SMART goals, what are some of the SMART goals, or how would you set up a SMART goal to achieve in 2025?
Okay, so let's first define SMART. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then time bound. Okay, so essentially, anytime I'm working with a client, and we're talking about goals and dreams, even retirement, for instance, we always want to make sure that we're very specific in terms of what needs to be saved up for. If it's for retirement, we're always looking for someone's financial independence number. We're going to determine that, and that's going to be our overall target. And then we'll work backwards with the software to figure out how much money does that person need to put away per month based on a certain rate of return that we should be able to get them based on the investment or what have you. But if you're simply just, let's say, planning for a down payment on a house, because I know that's a big target for a lot of your audience, just let's say you need $10,000 saved up to cover closing costs or what have you, and you want to be able to do that by the end of this year, December 31st. So simply you can say, okay, $10,000 is my specific goal. It's measurable. I know what it is. I want to make sure that's there for a closing cost or a down payment. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 12, and okay, that's $833 a month that I need to save up. And everything. And if that fits into the budget, going back to the budget worksheet, so earmarking those dollars in that budget worksheet that you set aside to be able to hit those goals, okay, now that's all relevant, it's tangible, but it's also time bound. Because the biggest thing I tell folks about goal setting is if you just say, hey, I want to buy a house, chances are you're never going to buy a house. But if you can be as specific as possible and as detailed as possible, even if you're writing down the type of house that you want to buy, that's going to make you more disciplined because you're cueing in all your senses. I was told that you show me somebody without discipline, I'll show you somebody without vision. So without vision, you're never going to be able to have the discipline because there's nothing it's going to excite you to be disciplined, to curve your behavior, to be able to lock in and do the things you necessarily need to do to be able to achieve that goal in time period that you need to achieve it in.
Yeah, and that definitely makes a ton of sense because it takes a change in behavior. And oftentimes to change that behavior, there has to be a real deep motivation. Like you mentioned, a lot of folks who want to buy their first home, oftentimes the first hurdle that they encounter in that process, then now they want to quit or they, want to put it on the back burner, I'll buy another time. It was like, but if you're deeply passionate about, hitting this goal and reaching this goal, then you're going to be passionate about saving the money and changing the behaviors in order to reach that goal. So definitely got to have that motivation there. I definitely get that. Now, we talk about real estate. There's other investments, obviously, that you deal with. And oftentimes when we work with our clients, we often talk about, getting into different types of investments, whether it be starting their own business or investing in the stock market. But they oftentimes feel like it's unpredictable, it's risky, it's scary, from your experience and the idea of risk and, change, how do you help clients kind of like overcome that? Or what advice do you give them to kind of just get started in investing, even in unpredictable markets?
I would say the market isn't that unpredictable if you're investing for the long term. Okay, if you're investing for the short term, yes, you're going to have some ups and downs. Yes, you can't predict when that's going to happen. Sometimes it could happen all in a 24-hour period of time. It drops and then it pops back up. So I've seen that happen with a client before where they're freaking out because they need to use the money short term and they didn't tell me that. So I think it comes down to, number one, inherently, majority of people are risk adverse because it's driven by fear. Fear is driven by a lack of knowledge. So I think the first thing to do is really sit down and understand investing and understand your options. Something as simple as using a mutual fund to diversify your portfolio. A mutual fund was designed for the average investor to be able to invest but reduce the risk involved in investing because your average mutual fund is going to have over 150 different companies that you're investing in, a combination of stocks and bonds in there. So, and it's really all based on your risk profile. So typically, someone like myself, a financial advisor, will sit down with you and actually figure out your risk profile and then your time horizon, how much money you have to set aside for your goal or what have you, and then be able to pair you up with the right funds that's going to meet that objective in your profile. Other types of investments, once you're a little bit more established, maybe diversifying and going off into real estate and adding real estate to your portfolio. There's a number of ways you could do that through, again, mutual funds that specialize in in the real estate market or REITs or even buying rental properties or what have you. Now, over the last year or so, with the rates rising and what have you, the government kind of put in some penalty fees in the pricing of rates to kind of focus more on allowing more inventory for first-time home buyers or people purchasing their primary residence versus rental property or second homes. But that is an option as rates start to fall now as well. But the biggest thing is, I think too, is part of that is building your own skills, adding more income to yourself. One of the biggest things I think right now most people are encountering is, hey, things are getting pretty expensive out there. My primary income can't keep up with the demands that are out there, especially in the housing market and if you're in California, to be able to afford those things. So most people are picking up those side hustles to be able to help out. But I would tell you, make sure you have a plan. When I came into financial services, I had a plan. I was I was using the military part-time reserves while I built my financial services business. So it reduced the risk. And this is during 2008 when all chaos was happening in financial services. So I used that to kind of reduce the risk involved with building a financial services business. So I had that residual income coming in that was guaranteed, and it took some stress off and allowed me to be able to focus on building the financial service business, acquiring clients, having ups and downs initially as you build that portfolio of clients until you get it and then you transition out. But I think too often most people get stuck in that cycle where they're relying so much on the side gig, or if they're building a business, they keep it as a part-time. They look at it as a part-time thing instead of committing fully to going after building the business, to transition fully from their primary job to taking that risk in running their business and understanding that the fruits of their labor are going to pay off big time down the road, where that job may or may not be able to do that.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because a plan, we often talk about plan, and, there's these pipe dreams, and then there's really putting action behind your words, your dreams, and your vision. And that plan is to get you there. And so, like you said, if you're working, a 9-to-5 job, and then, building a business after hours or weekends, whatever the case may be, having a plan is going to help you get there so you don't get stuck, And so even though a lot of people want the additional income, they may not want the additional work. And so it's going to take some work to build a business and gain that freedom and achieve those goals. So that plan is important. And I think getting guidance from those who have done it, getting guidance from those who, can show you the way is so valuable. And so individuals like yourself, where you can sit down and show how you did it, and you can talk to those who are in similar situations so that they can now do it. And I think it starts to open their eyes to what's possible. So that's awesome. When we talk about real estate, because we brought it up, a lot of people have this goal of buying their first home, and sometimes they get in a little over their head, especially here in California, where home prices are higher, and some other states too. But what are some of the common mistakes that you may have seen as you're helping like first-time home buyers? Like, what common mistakes are they making with their money, their finances, and how do they avoid those moving forward?
Well, first and foremost, like you mentioned, I think one of the biggest issues is most people spend too much, or they get in over their head, especially if it's a first home purchase or what have you. Just because you're qualified for a purchase doesn't mean that you actually have to spend all the way up to that, especially if you're, again, sitting down, doing a comprehensive budget and realizing, hey, yes, I may qualify for that, but that's not where I want to be, especially if I want to travel, especially if I want to be able to put certain dollars away in my investments account and protect that, or especially if you're getting a fixer-upper. Most people, they keep watching HGTV and they think that, fixer-upper is the way to go or what have you. But I kind of tell folks, you have to kind of look at it differently. You can't just say, I'm gonna build equity into my home and that's gonna be my ticket out to building generational wealth. No, for me, I learned very quickly and So I was fortunate where I bought a house young, and that didn't really require a lot of work. But my first kind of stumble upon it was Actually, when I met you after when I was trying to sell this house, but I bought my first house with my wife, which was a new construction, and I had done a lot of research on the area that we're moving to or trying to move to, and what have you, in Del Sur, here in San Diego. And my buddy at the time was my my real estate, and he was trying to tell me, hey, let's go to 4S. You can get a better deal in 4S. And I'm like, no, I've already done my research. I understand. And mind you, the difference between 4S and Del Sur is one road, whether you're on one side of the road or they're a Camino del Sur. But I had done my research and I knew, okay, this was a brand new community, roughly 4 or 5 years old at the time, and houses that were selling on the older side were selling for 100,000 plus after 2 years. So no matter what, this is where I needed to be because I'd done my research. So that's what we did, and I had done the math and everything. We bought at 950 and sold 3 years later when I met you at 1.23. Okay, and then we bought here my current home. Same thing. The reason why we moved is because we can get a larger house, a lot more land for roughly the same price we had paid for that one. So we bought it at 980, and I kind of already did the math and looked at the comps, what older homes in this similar square footage in this zip code were selling for. So I knew it. But the thing that was surprising was the models actually sold a lot higher than I anticipated. So now after 5 years, we're more than double the value in terms of what we bought. This is now over $2 million. So instant equity that's built in there, that if you bought a fixer upper, yeah, you have to, number one, you have to come up with the capital to actually do the repairs. Most people don't really think about that part. But also too, you have to almost wait until the other surrounding older houses sell for a lot more. And that's, you're banking on whether those folks actually upgraded their homes to sell for a higher price to raise the value versus all banking on you. So I think that's number one. Two, miscalculating how much it's going to really take in terms of down payment, closing costs. Now with the new rule change that happened, I think it's somewhere August, September time period, where they may have to pay for the commissions of their agent to another 2.5% that it used to be paid by the seller, now is falling on the lap of the buyer now to pay for their own agent, and just the maintenance costs after you get in. Most people don't realize, hey, you may have to buy furniture. You may have to pay for moving expenses to move your stuff in. You may have to pay for some deferred maintenance that the previous owner didn't do, or what have you. So those are things that people kind of make the mistakes on. And I think a small secret too is just getting pre-qualified instead of getting pre-approved. Okay, so like Eric mentioned, I'm a mortgage loan originator. So our strategic partner is Rocket Mortgage. So one of the things that we try to push for our clients to do, and I think it helps out the real estate agents as well, is get them pre-approved. So we've gone through the whole underwriting process. So if you need to sweeten your deal by saying, hey, I can close in 14 days, or I can close very fast. Hey, we already know that we're going to be able to close because we've already gone through the underwriting process. All we really need to do is maybe your inspection, that if it's not a VA loan, it's optional for you. Do an appraisal, which is going to happen. If it's VA, then you also need the term out inspection taken care of. But that stuff can be done within a week to 2 weeks or so, and move pretty quickly and make sure your bid is very competitive out there. So I think those are the mistakes I would say I see people make all the time. But really, the biggest thing is start planning early. Buying a home is a huge purchase. You can't wait till the last minute and say, oh, my lease is up on my apartment. Hey, I want to now buy a house. And you have less than 30 days to try to do that, or you haven't figured out what you're going to be qualified for and what you can afford, or your dream is to get a house, but really all you can afford right now in San Diego is a condo. Okay, it's okay. You can leapfrog and take steps. It's an easy way to continue to grow in real estate, but the biggest key is to get in. Once you get unlock the door by getting into real estate, your life is going to totally change in terms of what more things that you can be able to do down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, planning as early as possible, getting that pre-approval in hand will help you. Unfortunately, we see a lot of times where, people don't want to take that step until they find the right house. And we're like, No, when you find the right house, unfortunately, it's going to be gone by the time you get your pre-approval done. And so, there's steps. You want to take these steps. And I know one of the things that you mentioned was, fixer-uppers, where people think, well, okay, well, I'm watching this show and everything goes right. These shows are scripted. These things are not reality. I know it says reality TV, but they're often not. And so, what happens is when you have a budget set aside, you go to do a fixer upper, you take down those walls and you find some additional issues. So it's okay to do that work. It's okay to, if that's your investment strategy, but plan for some contingencies, things that will come up, because they will come up. So yeah, that is definitely good advice. One thing that I will say too is, if you're looking at, getting into real estate or investments, oftentimes people are thinking about this because they're worried about the next generation. They're thinking about, well, I want more for my kids because I didn't have much for myself, or my parents didn't leave me with much. Like, how do you make sure that those assets that a family is building get passed down the right way or to the next generation?
Well, I saw an article, I think it was last week or so, that talked about one of the biggest things, especially in the African American community, and I think probably for most minority communities, is the fact that we don't do estate planning in terms of getting a will or trust in place to be able to transfer assets and not have to really deal with the whole court system when it comes to that, or having assets tied up for years dealing with probate court in that regards. The other thing too is, most people look at life insurance as a taboo subject, but the reality is that's how the Carnegies or what have you passed down wealth from one generation and protected their wealth. Do you realize that if someone passed away, if they had some investments, you don't have immediate access to those funds? Okay, and GoFundMe's don't work if that's what you're hoping on, or if that's your contingency plan to pay for funeral expenses or what have you. The life insurance is there. The reality is, majority of families out there right now are relying on two incomes coming in to make ends meet. Okay, and if one of those breadwinners were to pass away, that family is totally devastated financially. So the whole purpose of life insurance really is, number one, to replace that income that's now lost, so that family's not devastated financially. They can mourn the loss but continue to move on without falling into a ditch financially or having to sell a house that family's worked so hard to get. So it's protecting the asset that way as well. But it's an immediate need there in terms of paying for funeral expenses. I can tell you the policies that we use are assignable as well. So I've done this with clients where I've gone to the mortuary with them and told the funeral home, hey, the person has a policy, let's do an assignment letter, which essentially means that, hey, the client has a policy, the company's going to pay out, we're going to just kind of check, they've agreed, the family's agreed to have some of the proceeds check sent straight to the funeral home instead of all of it coming to them and them having to then pay afterwards. Because after 2008, a lot of funeral homes said, hey, we're getting cutthroat. We're not going to proceed unless we have cash in hand. So that's an easy way to be able to get past that, especially when you're going through that time of mourning or what have you. If folks are trying to figure out how much coverage they actually need, we simply use a concept called DIME. The D is for death benefit, which is $15,000. Automatically put that in to cover funeral expenses. And yes, I know some funerals only cost about $10,000. You may want to be cremated and it's only $5,000 or $7,000. But the reality is, your spouse may not want to go back to work right away. So it kind of buys them some time a little bit there. Or one of the things that most people don't realize, because I did casualty assistance my last few months in the Marine Corps. A lot of the costs for funerals aren't really the casket. Is really the services, the overtime the funeral home charges, getting protection in terms of traffic control if you're driving from a church to a burial ground or what have you. So all those things add up, and those are hidden costs that come along with that. But the I is for income replacement. So we simply ask the client, if one of you guys were to pass away, how much money would you need coming in per month to supplement your income and maintain your quality of life, and how long would you need that for? So multiplying that by the number of years and months that income would need to come in. And the M is for mortgage and debt, knocking off the mortgage or debt, paying that off if the loved one were to pass away. And E is for education. That's totally optional. But do you want to fully fund your kids or partially fund your kids' education if one of you guys were to pass away? So that's a simple way for us to figure out how much coverage a person needs when it comes to their life insurance coverage. And again, term life insurance is the best type of coverage for a person. I know there's a lot of things that people will tell you, IULs and all stuff. Those are all things to make the insurance company and the agent wealthy, not necessarily you, the client. And I think the other big thing too, in terms of trying to create generational wealth, is start investing early for your kids. Okay, there's a number of different accounts, 3 different types of accounts you can set up for minors. You have a Coverdale education savings account. Again, all these could be in mutual funds as well. You have the UGMA, which is a Uniform Trust to Minors Act, which is such your trust fund that you can set up for kids. They can use that money for anything. The Coverdale you can use for all sorts of education. And then there's a 529 plan. That's strictly for college. However, one of the rule changes that was made last year to the 529 is if you're saving that money up for the child in the 529, they choose, hey, I don't want to go to college, or they didn't use all the money that was in the 529 plan for college. You can, as long as that money's been in you've had the 529 plan open for at least 15 years and the money's been seasoned for at least 5 years in that account, you can transfer up to $35,000 and roll it over into a Roth IRA, giving that child a huge head start on their life. Because one of the examples I always use with families too is that question I asked before, do you believe you could be a millionaire or what have you? I always ask them, especially when it comes to kids, do you believe you can save up $25,000 for that child by the time they turn age 18? And a lot of folks say, yeah, that's definitely doable. Well, in this case here, if you can save up that money and transfer over $35,000, your child, if you did nothing except for put that in a growth mutual fund and let that ride and didn't add another dime, by the time your child hit age 65, they have over $2 million sitting in that account for them to. And again, if they're adding more to that, that's even more they're able to build. And now you can start, again, creating that generational wealth where you're passing it down from generation to generation that you don't necessarily need for retirement, but you can now pass that along to the next generation and give them a leg up that maybe you didn't think this was possible.
And that's awesome because, yeah, it's the little things, that little bit of information to let them know. Yes, because the big deal right now is, my kids, either aren't going to college or trade schools are the way to go, whatever the case may be, but they can still utilize that money, or you can still, have it available to them so they can start a business with that trade or whatever the case may be. So I think that's a great trend and a change that was definitely necessary and needed for us. So kind of tying into that, and I kind of went right into the next question I have for you. Like, you have 2 kids. I have 2 kids. We want to make sure that our kids are raised to understand financial literacy and to become great investors, but not only just economically successful, but to be successful human beings, right? And so, what are you teaching, or what advice do you give to somebody who wants to teach their child about investing or money or finances to help them get started?
I think the first thing is obviously discipline. It starts with that, because investing, one of the things I taught a long time ago, I learned a long time ago, was money requires discipline. Okay, that's why when you see folks that win the lottery or what have you, or even professional athletes, typically a year after they're no longer athletes, or a year after they won the lottery, they're broke, because money is responsibility. They never grew into the responsibility to be able to manage that type of money that they had possession of at that point in time. But if you have to grind and work for what you have and save up, you value that money a little bit differently. So the same thing is with teaching kids. One of the things that we do with our boys is really, kids by nature, they only play with a few toys and they only play with it for a short period of time. So why spend all that money on all these toys? So we have 2 investment accounts set up for our kids. So anytime birthdays come up, Christmas comes up, my wife's Persian, so Persian New Year, the kids get money, or anytime they get money from relatives or family members or what have you, or friends, then instead I asked the question, okay, do you want to save this? Do you want to get your money to grow? And we start teaching that mentality and the behavior. Okay, let's put in your investment account, and we put it straight into their investment accounts. Our friends know that, hey, in lieu of gifts like toys or what have you, hey, just donate to their investment account that they have. So they have that now in the future, and it's going to continue to grow exponentially. Okay, this year they said S&P 500 did over 20% growth. So why not take advantage of that versus a toy that they're probably going to play with, break it, it's going to sit in a toy bin upstairs, or in some cases we have a closet full of brand new toys, never open it, we just re-gift it when their friends holidays come up or birthdays come up or what have you, since they're not using it or as a duplicate or what have you. So the other thing too is teach them, use some apps. One of my mentors and a good friend, he created this app to teach financial literacy to families called Give Get, and you can kind of Google search it or what have you. It's on the App Store as well, I think on both Apple and Android. But it's in a Monopoly format, but it talks about and teaches about net worth and how to build net worth as you go around the board and what have you. And so little things like that, but also, if you're going to do chores and give allowances, teach them the concept of money, and hey, everything, there's a price for everything, and you can't just get things for free or what have you. So things cost. So start having those conversations with them early. We have I know we have a lot of folks on here as well, but if you contact Eric or at least reach out to me, we have a booklet called How Money Works for Kids. So you can actually look through that, and it gives you some of the basic financial concepts but in a format where you can actually teach kids. We have an adult version as well, but a version that you can teach kids right early on, so they start understanding money, and they get ahead of the money game and understand the value and how to make it work for them. Because I think too often, especially growing up, we were taught about the piggy bank and how to put money in the bank or what have you, but we were never taught that, hey, the bank's there to make themselves rich, not us. The banks barely pay enough. Well, they don't pay enough to keep up with inflation. We were never taught about that. I think this year everybody's becoming more aware of inflation, but the reality is inflation's always there. Inflation typically 3 to 4% each year, it goes up. So are you getting your money working for you where it's actually making at least that 3 to 4% so you can at least maintain the same buying power? So teaching kids little things like that early on and how to get their money working for them, I think, are huge steps.
That's great advice because oftentimes people they have different styles, they have different priorities with their kids, and that's fine. We often get asked, me and my wife, about what do we do with our kids, and for us, we didn't necessarily get the financial literacy and training at home, but once we learned, we were dedicated to making sure that our kids knew, and our grandkids are going to have even better. And so what that came to, I like how you said give them a choice, because when money is a choice, all of us, you get paid for what you do, whether you have a business or you're working full time. You have a choice as to what you're going to do with that money. You can choose to pay your mortgage or not, right? You can choose to, if you're going to eat out, like you said, fast food is a big issue. And so if you teach your kids to make the right choices with the money early, then that's a lesson that they can continue on throughout their lives. So that's one thing that we've always done with our kids as well. It's like we've kind of set it to where what percentage of this money is going to what, and if you can establish the percentages early, even if you're just have an entry level job and you can live by those percentages, eventually when you're moving up and you're an executive and you're making multiple six figures or whatever the case may be, you keep to those percentages. And next thing you know, you've built this nest egg and you've built generational wealth. And so we really like to not only focus on a dollar amount, we focus on a percentage of your money. What are you doing with it? How much do you want to give? What do you want to spend? What do you want to save? And try to stick to those. So great advice for sure. So my next question, you had mentioned an app. What tools or resources would you say for somebody who's working full time and they're trying to get their finances together, whether they're trying to save for education or a house, whatever the case may be, are there any specific tools or resources that they should go to or they can use?
I think when it comes to, again, budgeting, number one, get a budget worksheet. Whether you're using a spreadsheet, whether you find one online, I think Mint is a good app to help out with that as well. But really get a comprehensive budget. If you're leery about what you're really spending, go back over the last 3 months of your bank statements if you've been just using the debit card and not using cash, and actually fill out your budget worksheet. One of the things I always used to teach clients also is I used to send them a budget worksheet on Excel spreadsheet, and I said, hey, create a tab for each month, because guess what? Especially if you own a home, or even if you're renting, I guess, there are certain times of the year that, hey, maybe your electricity bill may go up because you're using the AC or heating a lot more in those time periods. Maybe your water bill is going to go up because it's springtime, and so you'll get a sense of the rhythm of what's going on financially. Maybe you have a lot of birthdays in a certain month, or the Christmas holidays or what have you. So you'll get a rhythm of that. But getting the budget worksheet is the key. The second thing is getting a licensed financial advisor, financial coach to sit down with you and help you out. You cannot go about this alone. Someone taught me a long time ago, in life, you want to make sure you have a good lawyer, good doctor, and a good financial advisor. Okay, so because those are going to be the big things that help you get ahead financially and get ahead in general in life. So don't take that for granted. The big key there is make sure you're licensed. I know there's a lot of folks, and my brother has sent me some clips from YouTube or TikTok or what have you of some people spouting off some things. Don't believe everything that you see on these things, because one of the things that he sent me didn't make any sense whatsoever. So talk to folks that are actually working in this industry. They're licensed, so the government's already said that they're certified, they know what they're doing, they're experts in their field to be able to help you get ahead. There's companies like Primerica where we're not charging you to get the financial advice or what have you, the products and services that you pay for. Those companies pay us to be able to help you out. Other companies, yes, they're going to be fee for service, but those are more high net worth. If you're more in the high net worth and you want more managed accounts or what have you, we have the ability to do that as well, but that's when you're paying the actual fee on your investments again. But the other things are like podcasts. You can pick up books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is a good one. The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. Dave Ramsey, I know he has a big program that most churches utilize, and most people who have watched this stuff. Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman are kind of legends in this industry. You can probably find them on YouTube to get their resources there as well. But podcasts like this one are going to be huge in terms of just getting basic fundamental knowledge to help you get started and go about this.
Yeah, and that's key. You know, I'm a big Dave Ramsey. I mean, I'm Dave Ramsey certified, and so definitely believe in a lot of the things he talks about. Some stuff doesn't quite work for California, but we agree to disagree on that. But you know, there's definitely some principles there in those resources, and I think, like you said, you know, the simple things, getting started, don't overcomplicate things. You know, most people are like, you know, they're looking at all these different strategies and day trading and whatever the case may be, and it's like, do you have the time? You know, you're working full time. You know, can you really manage that? So don't overcomplicate things. Really look at, you had mentioned risk tolerance. Look at the time constraints that you may have if you're working full time. If you're a parent, you're married. You know, obviously you don't put generational wealth before those things. Keep those things in perspective. And so I think just kind of taking those first steps. If you can give, like, you know, say one thing that people should try to achieve this year in 2025, what financial goal would that be, and why?
Okay, so going back to what you just said too, one of the things I always try to say is there's no such thing as fast money. Fast money don't last either. So don't believe in those type of things. But I think one of the biggest things going into the new year and things that folks should try to do, one of them is, again, to have a vision, because without vision, there's no discipline or what have you. One of the things I used to always do with my clients is have them get 3 index cards. Okay, especially if you're a couple, get 3 index cards. And what I want to do is each spouse take one of those index cards and write down your top 5 goals that you want to accomplish. Again, going back to your SMART goal, be very specific, measurable, actionable, and make sure that you put down a time on there as well, like in terms of, hey, if a year from now, then January of 2026 on there. So when 6 months goes by, you're not wondering, when did I start this goal? When is a year from what date? Okay, so you have all that stuff written down there. And I want you to share those goals with each other, because one of the biggest things that happen with couples is the lack of communication, especially when it comes to goal setting and talking about what they want to do in life and want to accomplish in life. So you know what the other person needs in terms of support, but also what their goals are. And then the third card, what I want you to do is, as a couple, as a family, write down the top 5 goals you guys want to accomplish as a family, and make copies of them, put them up all over the house and everything, because that's going to be your motivation when you're getting up that day and trying to figure out, man, I don't want to suck it up today. I don't want to be disciplined. I don't want to not eat out. I want to, I want to be like the Joneses. No, in order to get what other people don't have, you have to sacrifice and do things that other people aren't willing to do. And part of that is being disciplined, being sacrifices, but having a vision of where you're going. Okay, sacrifice is very hard if you don't have a vision of where you're going. And it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to sacrifice because you don't have a vision of where you want to get to, what you want to accomplish. So I would say that's a big thing that you want to do. But again, if you haven't already done so, sit down and figure out what you want out of your life, where you want to go. What is because success, especially when it comes to wealth, varies from person to person. Okay, what do you want your family's financial picture to look like? One of the things that a mentor taught me a long time ago is, how to establish generational wealth, again, using life insurance early on, where, hey, maybe your parents can't afford what it's going to cost to cover them right now, but maybe you can cover them because you're a child and you can be the beneficiary. You may not necessarily need that money, but you take that money and invest it when they do pass away. They may not have had money to pass down to you, but now you can have the insurance company provide a legacy for them. Okay, think about there's a saying that after 3 generations, it's almost like you never exist, because your great grandkids won't even remember your name. Okay, unless you create generational wealth. Everybody knows Sam Walton because his kids each got $5 billion. Okay, and they continue to grow the Walmart empire and everything, and Sam's Club empire. You think his great grandkids can remember great grandpa Sam? Yes, because he built the wealth. So you have the opportunity to be able to do that too, but it first comes with having a vision of what you want to accomplish, then putting together a game plan. And you don't have to do that alone. You have other folks, you have professionals out there that can help you put together a game plan. Then it's a matter of you being disciplined and executing on that. Now, will things happen overnight? No, they won't, but you'll start to see incrementally things will happen. And before you know it, you're going to be light years ahead of where you ever thought you could be.
That's great advice. Yeah. I love that 3 card and putting them up so you see them, because you got to keep your goals up in front of you. So that's really powerful. I remember when we were going to move to San Diego, we lived in Sacramento, and we put a date as to when we wanted to make the move. And literally we put it up in our house, we had the garage door. So every time you were going to the garage to leave for the day, you had no choice but to read that, and so it's definitely powerful to set your goals and then put them up so you see them every day. We're getting close to the end here. I do want to wrap up, but we did get a question from one of our viewers, and so I do want to pop that in real quick, and that way we can answer that. I'll let you answer first, and then I'll jump in. It says, in the current market, when would it be financially smart to buy a house? Is there a certain housing rate percentage threshold? So I assume we're talking about interest rates there. So I'll let you chime in on that, and then I'll follow up.
Okay, this is one of the things I always tell clients, okay? Especially right now, you get into the real estate market when you can afford to get into the real estate market. So if you can get in now, because guess what? Rates are going to continue to come down. But one of the misconceptions most people had when this all happened, a year and a half ago, was they thought that, it's a bubble, okay? Housing prices are going to drop and everything. No, after 2008, there are a lot of laws that were put in place to prevent that whole catastrophe from happening again. Okay, so what you saw was prices level out as rates continue to rise. What it did was thinned out the competition. Okay, and house prices stayed kind of level. They just sat a little bit longer on the market. and there wasn't really a lot of inventory because folks were like, hey, I can't afford to leave my house right now, okay? Because, you know, my wife and I, we love new construction. We love looking at models. So sometimes you get tempted to move but I did the math when rates were just at 4.5%, and just a jump from 2.5 to 4.5% was going to cost an extra $1,000 a month for the same exact loan. There's a lot more better things I can do with $1,000 than just to put it on a house instead of actually investing it or what have you. But if you qualify to get a home right now, get a home, because as rates drop, guess what? Pretty much every loan product out there has a streamlined refinance option where all you have to do is show that you made the last 6 payments and you're still employed or what have you, and you can get that rate reduced down to whatever the going rate is at that point in time. If it's a VA loan, all you have to do is show the net tangible benefit, meaning that you're saving money, your rate's dropping 0.5% or what have you, or if you're taking cash out because you have built-in equity. So there's a lot of different ways to get around that. But if you can get into the market, because that is the key. If you get priced out of the market, it's very, very hard to be able to actually entry. And again, once you get into the real estate market, it opens up so many more doors for you, both short-term and long-term.
Yeah, absolutely. And to chime in on that, when I get this question a lot, just being a real estate broker and, you know, kind of having to answer these questions for buyers and sellers, you know, they'll say, well, you know, the market, you know, what do you think about this market and when's it going to change? And I say, well, is the market good or is it bad? And they're like, well, it's a bad market. You know, I'm trying to buy. And I say, well, it's only bad because you don't own, right? So the sooner you can own, this market all of a sudden changes for you, because you look at appreciation as a good thing. And you're looking at your home value going up. And you're thinking, I'm doing pretty good. And even in the house that we're in now, when I look at what we paid and what it's worth today, and it's just like, I didn't do anything extra. I didn't work any extra hours, or, you know, I didn't close any more deals in order for our house to go up. It literally just built equity over time. And so, like you said, the sooner you can get in, the better off it's going to be. The perspective on the market is going to change for you. And so, you know, I was in the business back when the market crashed too, and it's just like there was a lot of fraud going on. Let's call it what it was. There was a lot of fraud going on in the market, and that's how you got the market to crash. There's no fraud really going on right now. I mean, there's going to be a certain percentage of fraud at all times, but people who are in homes right now, they generally qualify for homes. If they get into financial trouble, they're probably sitting on quite a bit of equity, and so they're not going to just all of a sudden turn around and short sell their home or foreclose. You know, they're going to just put it on the market, sell it, and walk away. And so, you know, we're not going to see that market crash like we did years ago. So I know everybody would love to have prices drop that low, but to be honest with you, you wouldn't. Even when I get asked the question, well, when are rates going to come back down to 2%? I say, well, unless we have another pandemic, it's not going to happen. And I don't think we really want another pandemic. So, you know, those are things to consider.
And I would jump in and say that, you know, every client I've talked to about home ownership or what have you, so even if you live down south where appreciation isn't as great as it is in California, if you've kept that property for a couple of years, you still walk away as if whatever money you poured into it, you're getting that money back with a little bit of a bump. Versus if you're renting, you're never getting that money back. Okay, so if you compare the two, at least you get your refund or so from your monthly payments in that regards versus not. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the question, Tim. He said that you guys go back many, many years, so appreciate him jumping in and asking the question. So to wrap this up, I do want to kind of finalize here. You know, is there, when you look back over your career and the financial decisions that you've made early on, you know, can you kind of boil down to maybe one decision that you made, financial or otherwise, that kind of set you on the right trajectory to where you are today? Is there one decision that you made that maybe somebody else can, you know, take advantage of making that same decision?
I think it's when I started investing. Like I mentioned, I started right out of college, started investing. So the key there is start early, but the right answer is if you haven't started early, start investing right away, because that allowed me to save up enough money to where 2 years later, when I moved out to San Diego and came back off of deployment I was able to buy my first house at age 25. I know there's plenty of people out there that can't even do that. But what it did was, again, allowed me to be able to purchase that house at 25. I kept it for 13 years before I got married, and my wife wanted a house for us. So I ended up renting that out as it turned that into an investment property for 3 years. And then you were part of that journey of me renovating that home and then selling it for top dollar as well at the time and everything, and then investing the proceeds from that. So that set me up pretty nice, but also taught me a lot about home ownership. I was fortunate that I was blessed with a great team at that time that protect me from those crazy loans that were going on and going rampant back during that period of time in 2003. But I think the biggest thing too is the discipline that it took, especially for somebody young. I keep going back to that because nothing in life is just going to come that easy. You have to have enough discipline in your life. It has to be a way of life. Why did I make it to the Olympic trial? Because I had a vision of what I want to accomplish. I had great people in my ear telling me that you're able to do it. You're going to be able to do it. And this is when I first started running track in high school, my senior in high school, and weren't even running times. But I kept that belief that the Bible talks about belief or faith the size of a mustard seed. And so having that and just working my butt off to be able to achieve it. The same thing is true for your financial goals. You're going to have a vision of what you want to accomplish, work your butt off to achieve that goal by staying disciplined about it. And before you know it, you're going to be somewhere that you never thought that you could be. Or when you get there, it's going to be greater than what you could ever imagine. And that's what it's been for me, whether it's been financially, whether it's been athletically or professionally, is I kind of use the same template along the way to create success. There's a saying that success leaves clues and what have you. So, and if you talk to anybody that's been successful, those are the things that they will probably tell you that you have to have in order to be successful. But that set up my whole life, was just start investing early on in terms of my adult life, in terms of what I want to accomplish financially, is start investing early on, practicing what I preach once I got into the industry and being true. There's another video out there for folks that are trying to do a side hustle or thinking about starting your own business or what have you. It's called Are You a Connector? And the beautiful thing about what I do is I'm a connector. I look at myself as a connector. I connect people with products. I connect people with businesses that they wouldn't necessarily have access to. I connect people with people that I've developed a network of people of different skill sets to help the clients that I have and help the people around me get to where they want to go. But also share the knowledge and the lessons I've learned throughout life instead of hoarding it. I think that's the biggest thing, is if you can always be a giver instead of just a taker, enriching the lives of other people, that's going to pay huge dividends for you in your life.
That's awesome, man. No, I definitely appreciate you being a giver and giving your time this evening. I know that, like I said, you're a busy man and you got businesses and family and things of that nature. And so I just appreciate you coming on, speaking to our audience, because there's a lot of folks who, sometimes we often get lost in our own lives and we think that, 2024 was great and it's going to be even better in 2025. Well, maybe it wasn't so great for a lot of people. There might be some folks who are struggling, who had a tough year, and they're trying to figure out how do they turn the corner? How do they kind of take the right step? And so I think the information that you provided today really will help folks to get started, get motivated. Simple things that you can do. Dave Ramsey calls them baby steps, things that they can just start to do today. And, like you said, going back to discipline and being dedicated to those SMART goals that they set up. So I really appreciate the information. Tell everybody how they can reach you if they have additional questions or just trying to get information to get in touch with you. How can they do so?
Definitely. So if you guys need help or just have questions or what have you, I'm on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find. I'm also on Instagram as well. You can call my office also. That's 619-359-8650. Here in California, but I'm licensed pretty much all across the United States. And again, I'm here to help families, here to help people get ahead financially. The folks that have been with me, like you mentioned, Tim had popped in, people have been with me now for 17, 18, 19 years. They've seen the fruits of their own labor. They always thank me, but the reality is they took the chance in trusting me back then when they were just getting to know me and had the trust that, hey, what I'm telling them is going to pay off for them or what have you, and they did. And a lot of folks are set up where it's now positively impacting the next generation as well, where they're able to have money set aside for their kids to go off to school or start their life in a big way. And the same thing could be true for you if you took that step, if you haven't already taken those steps. But the first thing is to take the step and believe that it can happen for you if you're willing to put in the work and willing to have a vision of where you want to go.
Awesome, Al. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up just by saying, everybody who has heard this, who's watching it online, whatever the case may be, like Torrance said, just take that first step, create a plan as to how you're going to reach the goals that you set for yourself in 2025 and beyond. Some financial goals that you have may take longer than you think, may take longer than just a year, and that's okay. Just take those first steps, start to look at your finances in a way of discipline, of taking action and telling your money where to go instead of your money telling you where to go. So I really appreciate you jumping on. I'm your host, Eric Halan. This has been the Just Got Paid podcast. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you in touch with some professionals in your area. You have a blessed day and take care.